so different.
Good morning, good morning, good morning, my We Are Not So Different family. Thank you so much for choosing to spend your mornings here with me, us. This morning's guest, I am going to try really hard. I know I could say Angela correctly. It's that Witczak. Did I say it correctly? Yes.
Yes,
All right.
yes,
Miss
ma'am.
Angela Witczak here this morning. Hi, Miss Angela. How are
Hello.
you?
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here on. I'm going to get it wrong. I got it wrong on my Facebook post. We are not so different. We are
That
not so
part,
different.
yes.
There we go. There we go. We are not so different. And I am
Right.
so excited to be here. Thank you for having me. I'm so
You're
excited.
so welcome. And I appreciate it. I'm super excited about, what you have going on and what we're going to talk about this morning. And just so I want to give my listeners a little bit of background. So we're going to do the bio thing, but then we're going to jump right in. I promise you guys.
Great.
I promise. So, Miss Angela Witczak is a best-selling Amazon author with her #1 new release book. Hey, girl, hey! Life is a Circus. Enjoy the show. Yes, that part, y'all see it? She is a speaker, a life coach, and entrepreneur. Angela has owned a variety of businesses and served on many nonprofits. I don't know if I want to give out your location. I'll say she's in Wisconsin with her hubby, Edward, and some of her 8 children. She's passionate about helping women to be the greatest version of themselves. Clap for the queen, yes. And truly believes that no one is gone too far. Angela's purpose in life is to love God and to love people without fear or reservation. She was simply called to love no matter the circumstances. Ladies and gentlemen, Miss Angela.
Thank you.
You're
Thank
so
you so much.
welcome. So ladies and gentlemen, you know the drill. Find your favorite spot on the couch, get your favorite drink, whether that's Kool-Aid or Cavassier, and just get ready to tune into this conversation.
I don't even know what Cavassier is. Is that like wine?
No, that's hard liquor.
Oh,
Yeah.
all right.
Because sometimes
you might need it after this journey.
Sometimes wine just won't do. So we say from Kool-Aid to Cavassier and anywhere in between, whatever your drink of choice.
I'm looking that up later.
Yes, ma'am. So what I love most about your bio are the 2 last sentences. Angela's purpose in life is to love God and to love people without fear or reservation. And she was simply called to love no matter their circumstances.
Yep.
That is beautiful. And it sounds so simple. But honey child, let me tell you from experience, people are not always the easiest to love.
Oh, truth. That is so true. It is. And I find that to say that it's not easy to love, but everyone is somebody's mother, sister, brother, father, uncle, aunt. We're all not that different. We are the same. And when you take like all of the stuff out and you just put humanity in, and you can just like look at a person and say, you are a person. And I can love you for that because you're just a person like me, then it makes it easier to love. At least for me, it makes it easier to love other people.
Okay. And I love the perspective. You're right. Because we all in that manner desire love. We're in that fact, we're not so different from one another. So yeah, but I just love that that's like your mission and that's what you're called to do. And we, at the risk of sounding corny, what the world needs now
is love, sweet love, baby.
Love.
Sweet love. So just yesterday I heard this quote that was so profound to me, and I know I'm going to slaughter it, but I was scrolling Facebook and it said, everybody that you encounter is afraid of something, has lost something, and has loved something. So every single person falls into that category, that we've all loved something and maybe lost it, or we've all lost something in our lives, or we're all afraid of something. They don't have to be the same things. And we can just identify with that, that we all have this, similarity, which is just so profound to me. When I read that, I was like, oh my gosh, yes, all of us have those same things. So yeah, it makes it easier when you can look at that and try to find that in your life, how you can identify with another human being.
Yes, how you can meet somebody where they are, find that connection, and go for broke.
Yes,
Miss
absolutely.
Angela, yes, I love it. Okay, so all my guests, they get the same 2 questions, and then we can jump right in. So, number 1, if you had the undivided attention of an audience of your choosing, who would said audience be, and what would you tell them?
I love this question. So my ideal audience is women who feel like they are too broken, women who feel like they're too far gone, or they have just experienced too much in their life that other people kind of hold them at a distance. And when they kind of word vomit their story out on people, because we know we do it. Yeah. And then they see that person like give them a sideways glance and like back away slowly. Those are my people. Those are the people that I love and that I want to speak to, that I want to tell them that, you're not too much and there's not this not enoughness. You are created to be a beautiful human being, and that whatever your story is, we're all in it, right? We're all in the same boat. And that's what I want to tell people, that's my dream audience. And I always tell everyone, even in my book, after every chapter, I love you. That's what I would tell people. I love you. Even if you have no one else in your life that has said that to you, I love you. And I believe in you, and I believe in your dreams, because they matter, and you matter, and everyone matters. And that's kind of what I would tell people.
Just oozing with positivity and encouragement and empowerment. And yes, I love all of it. All of it. Okay, so question number 2, if you had the chance to speak to a younger version of yourself, let's say 4 or 5-year-old little Angela, what do you think she would need to hear?
Fun fact, I talk to my little 5-year-old self a lot.
Really?
I do. And that's for another day. But like I tell my sweet little Angela, that at 5 years old, those wings that you have, that sparkle and jazz, and like using your voice and speaking the truth all the time, because you don't know that it hurts other people, that you can just say, like, whatever you're feeling. I think about my little 7-year-old who he just says whatever he wants, whatever's on his mind's coming out of his mouth. Yes. And when I was 5, I used to do that, and then I learned hush, 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 children are to be, seen and not heard. Mm-hmm. All those things, like, and it closed down my voice, and it closed down my passion for a long time. And when I talk to my little 5-year-old self, I say, remember the circus, remember the joy you felt in life, remember the wonder and the excitement about life, because you can still have that, and your life can look like that every day. Just remember it. And so that's kind of how I actually live my life now, is after talking to my little self to say, here's your life.
Yes, love. Oh, you better come on through, Miss Angela. I know that's right. Yeah. I love it. Okay. Yeah. All right. So I have 1,000,001 questions, but before we get into all that good stuff, I want you to tell people in a nutshell, or in a long, a
bag of nuts.
I'm giving you license and liberty. Life is a circus. Enjoy the show. Yeah. It just released, I think you said May 1st.
It did, last Saturday.
Yes, I was like stalking you on Facebook because I'm seeing, this is popping off and then you're number one and you're bestseller and you're nominated for this. I'm like, you better come on through, Miss Angela. Yes.
Oh, well, it's only because of people like you. Thank you. It's only because of like my fans. I love it. I love that people are supporting me. It's like the biggest dream come true. So thank you.
You're welcome. So I want you to give us like I said, you can do in a nutshell or you can not whatever, but I'm definitely gonna have questions, but in a nutshell, what is Life is a Circus? Enjoy the show.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so have you ever heard that saying oh my God, it's such a circus around here? Or, and a lot of people are talking about their family, they're talking about politics. It drives me crazy when people refer to politics as the circus. And usually I'm on Facebook and I'm like, don't insult my circus that way. You are insulting my circus. But you think about that. And a lot of people, when they think about oh my gosh, it's such a circus around here, you've just gotten your toddler, Cheerios for the 87th time because you keep spilling them on the floor and there's a spill of Cheerios everywhere, and your teenager is in this love-hate relationship with you where she only loves you when you're giving her a ride or money, but hates you the rest of the time, doesn't want to talk to you and slams the door and do not enter sign on the door, and your husband is giving you that look let's go in the bedroom. I just want to take a shower. I don't want the little fingers under the door, Mom. Right? Because that's our circus. And then your dog, my dog is constantly peeing on the floor. I can't make him not pee on the floor. And then who's got to clean it up? You've got to clean it up. Not your dog, husband's dog, kid's dog, and of course you're cleaning it up. Right? So that's the circus that everybody's referring to. It's not filled with joy and it's not filled with excitement. And when I go to the circus, if you've ever been to the circus, whether it's Big Ringling or one of the touring circuses or even in Baraboo, Wisconsin, where it's year-round circus or 3 months out of the year, circus, you go there because you want to see jugglers and you want to see acrobats and clowns and music, and you leave there with this giant smile on your face, with your cotton candy dreams and your popcorn, and you feel just happy, and that's what I want people to know when they hear life is a circus. I want them to say, oh my gosh, my life is amazing. My life is filled with joy, no matter the chaos. And so really my book talks about, I was being a single mom when I was 18 years old and I got pregnant in high school. I went on to have 2 children. At 20, I got pregnant in a bar, not in the bar, but I went home with a man and I got pregnant with twins, and I got married and divorced. I gave a child up for adoption. I had 0 self-worth. I was the fat lady. I talk about being overweight and self-esteem and the struggles I had with that. And then getting married again and being in another abusive relationship because I had no self-worth, because my circus looked like chaos, and then I adopted 2 children out of foster care. And 6 months before my adoption went through, my husband, left. He said, I'm leaving. And I begged him to stay. And I begged him, I continued to choose toxic because I wanted my kids, so I sacrificed happiness so I could have my children, and then he left and I hit rock bottom, and that rock bottom status is kind of the pivot in my life where I then said, I can't live this way anymore. I'm more valuable than that. And, and I went through a series of changes, like a metamorphosis, like in the circus where there's the guy that he is, standing on this crate and he's got the sheet, and he's in a crate and his assistant is locked inside, or I guess it's the other way around. He's locked inside, the assistant's up, and she's like, 1, 2, 3, and out comes, the man, and he's like, here I am. It was like that for my life where I stopped being the illusionist assistant and moved on in my life. And from there I got remarried. I'm in a very healthy marriage. We've been together 8 years. He had 2 kids. I had 5. We had 1 together. Together we're the perfect 10. I always say that, we're the perfect 10 together. And but my life was not like without struggle. And that's what that's what I want people to understand, that even though your life has struggle, because it wasn't like, oh, I found myself and now, oh, life is perfect. After that, I had a business fire. I had a house fire. I lost everything in both of those two different fires in 2 different years. My brother was murdered. He was shot in the back of the head. I was diagnosed with multiple sclerosis. I was told I wouldn't walk by the time I was 40 years old. I just turned 41. We had a baby, all these other things, all these other happenings happened in my life, but I was able to find joy in all of those things. I was able to like roast the proverbial marshmallow while my house was burning. I remember sitting in my car hearing the voice of one of my personal growth people who said, no matter what circumstance you're in, if you can just sit back and roast the marshmallows, like you're doing it right. And I was like in my van at 3 a.m. with the fire trucks outside. And I thought, I remember when Brian said that I should just be roasting marshmallows. I wonder if I can go get me some marshmallows right now, because this is exactly where I am supposed to be right now. And it was just joy. And so that's so like the first half of my book is like a lot of icky bits. And then the second half is like, here's the same kind of circumstances, and here's how I've like turned them on their head. And that's what I want people to do. I want people to enjoy their show, enjoy whatever is handed to them, and know that it's not forever, and that other people have been there, and that you can have joy no matter the circumstances.
Yes, that was a whole lot.
Sorry.
No. I'm here for all of it.
Peanuts in a big bag. Here
yes,
they are.
all the icky bits and all that good stuff.
Yes.
So I want to go back to way back. So yes. You said that you put a child up for adoption.
Yes.
So my listeners know that I put a child up for adoption many years ago. So I'm always here for it when I'm on either end, the woman that adopted or the woman that gave up for adoption. In this case, you're both. So let's talk about the adoption process. What were the circumstances surrounding you giving up or putting up your child for adoption?
Yes, absolutely. So like I said, I had 3 children. My oldest son was 3, and then I had these little babies, and they were like 6 weeks old when I met my first husband. And now I will tell you the term I use, husband.
Okay.
Like a lot of people like to call them exes, and I don't like to call them exes because that gives this like negative feeling around them.
Okay.
But if I just call them a husband, they were my once was husband. Okay. So they were my husband. And so that's kind of how I refer to my husbands in my book. And in life, they are my husband. It still gives them value because they brought value to my life, even if it doesn't look like that. So my first husband and I met, I was just turning 21. Our first date was on my 21st birthday. We were on kind of a blindish date. He started coming to church with me, and I was in this teeny tiny little church, and like I was the youngest one, and then like the next one was like in their 50s. So when, so I was 20 turning 21 and he was 23. So, here comes this fresh meat where there's the only other person that's my age coming to my church. And of course, all the little bitties are like, oh, you should marry this guy, because what else are my other options, really? And that was what I believed about myself. I really had no self-value. And so when we met and we connected, I was kind of like, okay, if this is what life is for me, then this is what life is for me. And so we were married 7 months after our first date, and like engaged and courted and married and like all the things. And we got married in September, and it was like a light switch. And I always tell people that my first husband was a lot like Peter Piper kept his wife in a pumpkin shell, and there he kept her very well. That was me. I was like, don't talk, don't speak out of turn, you're going to stay in here. And yeah, you have these 3 kids, but like, I'm not really tolerating that. You're my wife, and you're going to stay in this little house that I've paid for. And I'm going to go to work, and you're going to cook, clean, do all the things. And so this is my good Christian wife duty. So that's what I'm going to do. And I got pregnant immediately. So now I have these, this 3-year-old, and I have twins that are like 7 months old, and I'm now pregnant. And he became abusive, and I too big for my britches. And I'm not saying that what he did was right, but like, I would fight back, like, you can't talk to me this way, right. And he one night he came after me and destroyed our house, and he pulled a knife out, and he was like, we're not doing this anymore. And I picked up the phone and I said, I'm calling 911. And he left that night, and I didn't have to call 911, but he left. And, and I'm already pregnant. And a couple weeks later, I met with my pastor at my church and my family. And, I'm like, what am I supposed to do? Like, do I live with this husband, that is this way? And I'm a terrible wife, and I don't know how to do the things he's asking me to do. And I don't know what to do. And I mean, and I'm 21,
right.
Like, I'm trying to play house. I'm thinking about my kid. My kid is 23 right now, and he has no children, and, he's engaged to be married. And I'm thinking, I couldn't imagine one of my children having to like be a good wife at 21, and also be a mom of 3 children and be pregnant, and dealing with all of that. And, so I was pretty defeated, and I had gotten some counsel from my pastor who said like, we don't agree with divorce, but like, he can't hurt you. Like, that's not okay. And he can't break things, and he can't be acting this way. And like, that's not okay. And so I remember telling him on Thanksgiving night, my family had, my parents had said, like, if he doesn't go, we don't go. So like, we're all going to go as a family. We're going to play pretend that this is what family looks like. And so we all went. He rode in the front seat, and I rode it all the way in the back with the kids. And, my parents were like in between us. And he came in the house to, help me carry the kids in. And then he was like, I'm out, And I said, we got to talk about this. Like, I want to be married to you. You're my husband. Like, I want all of these things to work, but you can't break things. Like, you can't hurt me. You can't hurt the children. You can't break things. And I remember he walked over to my son's high chair and took the top off and cracked it over his knee. And he just threw the pieces on the ground and said, there, I don't have to be here anymore. And went out the front door, and I lost it. Like I kind of went a little crazy. And, I come running outside yelling, did you see what he did? Oh my gosh. I was like a crazy lunatic, and he just like looks at my parents and like points at me, and he's like, see what I got to put up with? And I'm like, do you see what he just did? Like,
right.
And everyone's like, oh, like, Angela, you need to calm down, and I was like, I'm not going to calm down. Like, do you see what's happening right now? And so he decided like it was over. He was moving out. He, packed his stuff a couple months later. And at that point, I was kind of hoping like, we can make this work, and in my mind, I'm like, we're going to be married forever. That's what I want in life. I don't want divorce. I'm like, there's something wrong with me if I get divorced. I will have this giant black mark on my face. It'll say divorced across my face, all of these things. And so when he moved out, like I said, I was like Peter Piper's wife. So he took everything because he had furnished our house because I was stuck in the house. So he took everything. He just brought a moving truck, took it all. And I was left with, remnants. He would, took the dresser drawers and pulled out the dresser drawers and was dumping my stuff on the floor,
wow.
just, and I'm freaking out. And I ended up leaving that night, and my dad stayed to like make sure that everything was like copacetic. And I left and I came back and, you know, my house was just in disarray of things everywhere. He took the bed, he took the table, you know, and there's my dad trying to put things back together, you know, like put things on a broken bookshelf that he left for me, very kind of him, you know, things like that. And I didn't know what to do. I was so broken. And my dad came over one day and said, you know, I will pay for some college classes for you. I think you should go to college. Let me pay for some classes for you. So I enrolled in night school and stayed home with my babies during the day. And I went to night school.
Time out. So
yes, ma'am.
You have 3 children, 1 3-year-old, 2 7-month-olds. You're currently pregnant. Your abusive husband just walked out and left you. And your dad said, let me put you in college. Let me put you in school. That was his answer?
Yeah.
Okay. God bless his ministry. Okay, go ahead.
Exactly. Like, you know, my parents are like fixers. How can we fix this situation? What would be the most logical situation to fix?
Yeah.
I'm like, and let me tell you, right? Let me tell you. And the answer was for me to become a secretary. Yep. And so let me tell you some things. I don't like technology. I am not an organized person.
Oh no.
What you can see is it's very camera ready back here, what you can see.
Okay.
Like you cannot see what's on the other side of this camera because I'm not organized. I don't understand paperwork. I don't know how to do anything. And my dad was like, you would make a really wonderful secretary. And I was like, okay, secretaries, they make good money. Yeah, right. I didn't stay in night school very long because bless his heart, I was not a very good secretary. I quit after, that's another story, but I quit after I had to take a filing class on how to file papers. That was it. That was a straw for me, filing papers. Anyways, back up. That was a couple years later. But anyways, so I was going to night school. And I come home one night and my dad is watching the kids and he says, I think we need to have a conversation about this baby you're carrying. And I was probably 5 months pregnant, maybe 6, but like between 5 and 6. I was definitely showing. I was definitely, you know, pregnant, big pregnant. And, you know, I was like, okay, like what's up? And he said, you know, there's a couple in our church that has been trying to have a baby for 14 years. And they just put letters in all of our mailboxes that are asking if anybody knows anybody like that is like going to have a baby or like is going to give a baby up for adoption or anything like that they would be open to that. And then there was like a big long story with it. And, you know, and I was like, okay, like good for them. Like, well done, friends. And, you know, and he was like, I think you should give this baby up for adoption, you know, and I was like, what? You know, how dare you? You know, and I just am like, how dare you say that? This is my baby. This is my husband. My husband and I are not even divorced yet. Like, what are you talking about? We could have reconciliation, you know, all the things. And I basically threw my dad out. And I went to bed that night and I just laid in bed and I prayed and I prayed and I prayed. And I said, okay, God, like if this is your plan, which I don't think it is, but if it is, like I need a sign above all signs, you know, like lightning, maybe if you could just have it strike like outside of my house right now, or like put up a billboard that says like, Angela, give this baby up for adoption, you know, any of those things, that would be fine for me. And you know, I got up that morning and I called one of my friends and I asked him to babysit. And I said, I need to go talk to my church and like figure out what to do. And so I sit down with my pastor's wife, you know, I prayed the whole way there. Okay, God, like, this is it. Like Sandy's going to be the one to tell me, like, you're going to like say it and it's going to be clear. And I sit down on her couch and we talk for an hour and she's very distraught. And I was like, what is going on? And she just says, like, oh, I need to tell you something, but I can't tell you, but I need to tell you, but I can't tell you. You know, I'm like, you know, she's probably like 65, 70. And I'm like, what do you need to tell me? And she said, I don't want to change your mind. Don't want to sway your decision. And I said, it's fine. It's really fine. And she said, this, a different couple came to us, to Fred and I, that was her husband, to Fred and I last week and just said, what if God's plan for Angie is to give this baby to Mike and Sonia? And I was like, okay, there's the answer. And, and she was shocked because then I told her, like, I've been praying for this sign and it's clear that this is what it is. And Fred came home on lunch and I told him, like, yep, I think this is the right answer. And he was like, this is crazy. Like, you just decided in 5 minutes, and I was like, no, this is the right answer. And it was. And so we called them and a couple days later and they came over and we had basically another like conversation in the living room. And I told them, my husband was gone and he moved to Georgia and he wasn't coming back. And like, what do you think? And then I called him and said, you're never going to see this baby. We're getting a divorce. You've already filed, like it's over. So I think we should do the right thing here. And so that's what we did. So I was 22 years old. I got married and divorced the year I turned 22, and I gave Michael, my son, up for adoption. And then I like went on to live life after that at 22.
Yeah, 22. That was a lot. Like, I am 42 and I don't know what I would do in that situation. And that's with years and decades of experience in life.
Yeah.
So 21 to 22, I couldn't even imagine.
Yeah.
So you were able to find a family to adopt. So was it an open invitation adoption where you were able to like see, because I know they have open adoptions and they have closed adoptions. So like, were you able to see him? Were you able to keep in communication?
Yeah, so the state of Wisconsin actually does not allow for open adoptions. So it was considered a closed adoption. I did know that going in. Obviously, like I said, it was a family that I was going to church with. And they had just moved. They were living in like the town I was living in, and they had just moved about an hour north of me, and they were attending a different church. So I knew that like he was not going to be raised in the same church that I had been in. And I was okay with that. And honestly, when I, the day that it was final, because in our state, children have to go from like my arms, my womb into foster care until the adoption is final. They have this waiting period because what if they change their mind? And we have a very strict laws in Wisconsin. So that way, when I was placing him up for adoption, he's turning 19 in a couple weeks. So 19 years ago, there was all this like giving children up for adoption and taking children back. Like that was like the big news back, almost 20 years ago. And so our state really made a lot of laws about like this waiting period and like how long the waiting period had to be and all of that. So technically, he was supposed to be in foster care for 6 weeks. I think it was like 45 days. I signed paperwork to say, I'm not changing my mind. Like, I'm not going to change my mind. I'm not changing my mind. So he was adopted 13 days after, or his rights were terminated because first you have to terminate rights and then the parents take over and then the adoption happens. So my rights were terminated 13 days after we got out of the hospital. So technically 17 days. And that day that my rights were terminated and we gave them custody, I hugged Sonia, his mom, and said, go get your baby, like go get your son. And I gave her a kiss on the cheek and I ran out of the courtroom because I was just crying, like I held it together long enough to like get out of the courtroom. And then I went in my car and I cried. I always knew that he was theirs. Like it was almost like a surrogacy. I saw him less than 5 times in his childhood. I always knew where he was. I always knew where his family was. His extended family, I started going to a different church. His extended family actually went to this different church I was attending. And I walked in one day and there was her twin sister, her identical twin sister. And I'm like, hi. And she's like, hi, it's Rhonda, not Sonia. And I was like,
Okay.
sorry, I just had like a little ghost moment there for her. And hi. And she's like, yeah, she's like, hi, we go here. And I was like, hi, you go here. That wasn't weird, but okay. And so like I always had the ability to say like, how's Michael doing? Like, how are things? Whatever. And I just knew that like kind of growing up, but I really gave him and them the space because I knew in my heart that he was meant for them. I really, even now, like my body was a vessel for him to be born and to be given to Mike and Sonia. And so he turned 18 1 year ago. For his 18th birthday, I gave him my wedding rings. I kept them this whole time. And they would be in my parents' safe. And there were times when I was very destitute, like couldn't pay my bills. And I was like asking people for money. And my dad would be like, we have those rings in the safe. And I'd be like, those are Michael's rings. Those are Michael's. They're not mine. They are Michael's rings. And he would be like, but you could sell them. You could put food on your table. And I'm like, but they're not mine. They don't belong to me. They belong to Michael. And Michael deserves to have rings from his mother that made this choice. Like that, I want him to have these wedding rings. So he knew that he was conceived out of love. And he knew that he had that. And I made the very best choice I could make for him. And so for his 18th birthday, I packaged up the rings and I wrote him a letter and I wrote his parents a letter and just thanked them for raising him. And about 2 weeks later, well, on his birthday, he sent me a message and said, I got the present that you gave me. He sent me a Facebook message. And 2 weeks later, we met in a park and we spent 3 hours. And he said his girlfriend wanted to meet me. And so I was like, great, your girlfriend wants to meet me. Cool, that's neat. So we met in this park and we sat there for 3 hours. And at the end, I gave him a big hug and I kissed him and I got to hold him. It was the first time I got to hold my baby in 18 years. And he was a man and he has the same eyes as my other children, the same bright blue eyes. And he looks like his father, his birth father. And so it was like looking into my husband's face, but seeing my eyes shine out. And it was just like everything. And I'll tell you, on the day that I told his mom to go and get him, it rained that day and it was downpouring and I cried all day. I mean, my kids were at daycare. I cried all day. I laid in my bed and I just hysterically sobbed for my baby. And I went to go pick them up that day and it was raining. And I remember, in my minivan, and I just said, why, God, why is this my life? Why did you do this to me? Why did you allow this? And why can't you just make it stop? Like one thing, can you just make the rain stop? And the rain stopped that day, like instantaneously. And I looked over and I kid you not, it was like a movie. I looked over and there was a double rainbow in the sky. And it was like God said, I promise you for you, and I promise you for him. Like, I got this. And I tell you what, the day that Michael and I, when he was 18 years old, it was raining when he left. And after he left, I sat in the car and I cried. I watched him drive away and I had given him his hug and I just said, thank you, God. And the rain cleared up and there was another rainbow. And it was like, I got you. And don't you worry, because I got you.
His promises are yes and amen, girl.
Every day.
So I have to ask, like, what was the meeting like? Were you nervous? Were you like afraid of what he would think? Did he ask the hard questions? Like, because I imagine that when I find him or he finds me, my son, like he's gonna have some questions for me. And that makes me nervous, but at the same time, I'm here for it. So what was that interaction like after?
He didn't ask me the hard questions and I was ready. Like I was braced for them. But we just kind of sunk into a conversation and he told me about he was homeschooled And he told me, I mean, he's so smart. So he was like already graduating. And so my boys, my twins that were 18 months older than him were graduating at the same time. So like all three of these boys were graduating at the same time. You know, we talked about what he wanted to do and what his dreams were. And we talked about me, and we talked about us writing a book. And, you know, we talked about what he liked to do and what he liked to eat. And I mean, it was like just a get to know you session. And I'll tell you, I know that it's what he needed, and I know it's what I needed, because in the last year, the last time I saw him, like, we haven't talked since then. I've sent him 2 messages of pictures I have like found that his mom had sent to me. So like I was digging through some stuff and I happened to find this picture, and I snapped a picture and said, you know, like, here's you at 3 years old. I don't know if you knew that, but your mom sent me this picture and I love it. And I just want you to have it, you know. But other than that, I think him and I both have a lot of peace about it. Like, okay,
good.
Like
good.
that was my, you know, that was my birth mom. That's the woman that gave birth to me. And, you know, and like, here's my mom, and I'm okay with that too. That's his mom and dad. And I don't want to take from that. And that's okay. It's a lot of peace for me. And so I think it's like the last bit of shame that I think I was carrying around, like, was gone after that. Because I think a lot of women carry shame around for giving a child up for adoption that we shouldn't have shame for, because we did this amazing, great, wonderful thing for another human being. But we all carry this burden on us. And even after 18 years, I think there was still this like little sliver of like, I still have this shame about this thing that I should have done better. And I didn't, but I did, right? Because I did better for him.
Yes.
And I did what was best for him. And so I think that last piece, like that last little sliver I had been hanging on to, was just like, look how amazing he is. Like, he's great. So yeah, so that was good.
I love it.
Yeah.
So then fast forward, you were able to be on the flip side of the process where you actually had the opportunity to adopt, you said 2, right?
2 children, yes.
So what was that process like?
Ooh, so that, okay, so I, you know, at 22 years old, I was living really destructively. I had 0 value in my life. Like, I was like wading through the muck all the time. Like, it was like elephant poop. Like, it was a lot like that, like a lot. And I didn't think I'd ever meet anybody. I didn't think I was worthy of meeting anybody. So I ended up meeting somebody online who was 14 years older than me, grossly overweight. I mean, we are talking very, very obese. And so was I. I was just packing on the pounds, packing on the weight, because I didn't believe anybody would want me, and I didn't believe anybody would like me. And so what does it matter how pretty I am or how not pretty I am? And so we met, and we were in an on again, off again, toxic, even while we were just like talking on the phone, like, and he lived in Arizona and I lived where I live, hundreds and thousands of miles away. And, you know, we would talk, and then we would go 4 months without talking. And then we would talk, and then we would go 4 months without talking. And we did that for 2 years of just, you know, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. And what ended up happening was I ended up working for a company that was, its headquarters were literally blocks from his house. And so I called him one day. We were in a not talking time. I called him and said, I'm getting sent out to Arizona. Like, I'm getting sent out to where you live. Are you going to pick me up from the airport? And that conversation spurred I can't be without you. Like, let's get married. Let's elope. Let's be together forever.
Oh.
And this was, you know, I was like 24. So like 2 years later. And so I was like, yeah, let's do this. Like, let's get married. So I was like 24 and he was like 38. And I'm like, yeah, let's get married. And so I flew out and didn't tell anyone. They knew I was going out there. They didn't know why. I went out to go do a training for my business that I was in. And he picked me up from the airport and we drove straight to Las Vegas, got married. Yep, just like literally I got in the rental car and we drove from Phoenix to Vegas and hopped in line to get married on, like in Vegas, you just walk up some steps 24 hours a day. Their little courthouse is open. You get your license and then you can drive over to a chapel and get married. And we did. And then we had dinner at the Hard Rock Cafe and drove back to Phoenix, all in the same day. No honeymoon, because I had to report to work like the next day. I had to report to this franchise conference that I was at. And that was I spent 2 weeks there on training for my job. That was our life, we got married and I flew home. And 2 weeks later, he drove his car, packed up his car, and he drove here to Wisconsin. Wow. Yeah. And we didn't know each other. I didn't know anything about him. I didn't know anything about who he was. And he got here, and I remember I was pretty broken as a human, and I wanted a baby, I wanted a replacement for Michael. And I wanted my happy family, so I wanted me and my husband and my children and a baby to kind of seal the deal. And that's what I had wanted real bad. And so every time my period came, I was in the bathroom crying, thinking there was something wrong with me. It must be me. It must be me. It must be me. Even though I knew I was as fertile as all fertile could be. Yeah. It must be me. And I would tell him, and he would say, remember when I told you I didn't think I could have children? I don't think I could have children. But he said there's a 99% chance that I can't have kids. And so this is what I'm hearing. So what you're saying is there's a 0.1. Right? So that's what I'm hearing. So what you're saying is there's a chance. And so that we did that for 3 years. So what you're saying is, and then finally I was like, okay, we can't have kids. Okay, it's just going to be me and you and Taylor and John and Isaac, and that's going to be our life, and that's how it is. And then one day we were sitting on a couch together watching a show, and I was just like, okay, this is my little life. This is how it is. And these 2 little blonde-haired, blue-eyed children came across the screen, and it was an adoption video, an adoption commercial that was don't you want to adopt us like a puppy? It was all oh, and and he reaches over and he grabs my hand and says, we got to find a way to have a kid together, and I'm like, are you serious? Okay, all right, you're serious, let's do this, and I'm literally the next day on my phone, oh, how do I find children? How do I adopt children? What do I need to do? And and I already knew the process. I already knew that you had to go through an agency and you had to do all the things, right? Because I'd already done it. I already did it on the reverse side. So I was calling agencies and they were saying things to me well, do you have money? Because, and I kid you not, this was something that was so heartbreaking to me. If you want a perfect little white baby, it's going to cost you $25,000. And I'm like, but what you're saying is that there are other children that do not cost this much money. Well, no, because everybody wants a perfect little white baby. And that was heartbreaking to me. Absolutely heartbreaking. I was like, I don't care. Bring me all the children. Just bring them to my house, And so I was on websites and I was looking. I was like, bring me all the children, any available child, just bring them over, and I ended up being that I was so delusional that I had seen these 2 little girls that were just cuter than cute in Ohio. And I was thinking, I'm just going to call the Ohio number and say, I want these 2 children, pick them out of a catalog, and I'll be in Ohio this weekend where my best friend lives, and I'll just bring them home with me. I was just delusional. That's how it works, right? Because I wanted a baby so bad. And that social worker kind of knocked me down a little bit and was like, oh, honey, it doesn't work like that.
Right.
I'm like, oh, okay. But I'm like, but I see these kids and they need a home and bring them over to my house. And so she said, well, if you want kids so bad, like you could become a foster mom and you could have kids, like you could have as many kids as you want, like they'll bring them over. And so I went home and I told my husband, like, this is what I want. And I think we should become foster parents. And then it's not going to cost us a bunch of money. And like, we don't have to have savings and all this stuff. We can just have kids come to our house. And so we decided to become foster parents. And it took us almost a year to get licensed because the turnover rate in the social worker world is obnoxious. And so we would go through social workers like crazy because they were burnt out, and we became licensed. And I'll never forget, it was November 1st in 2008. And we were at the very, like, we were getting our like paper, like our certification that said, now you can have kids, which I will tell you, if you listen to this and you ever want to become a foster parent, the training is a joke. So like you have to train for 12 hours and then they will give you a piece of paper. Now
That's it?
Yeah, 12 hours. It might be 20 now, but but back 15, 14 years ago, it was 12. It was 3 Saturdays for 4 hours, 3 hours. Yeah, 4 hours. And they're all the background checks. You do all of that and whatever. But it was 12 hours. And then they're like, here's your certificate. And now you can have kids. And so I was there that day and I said, I don't get it. Like, I don't get how you get kids in foster care. Like, I don't understand the process. Like, I understand the abuse and I understand the tragedy and I understand death. And like, I get all of that, but I don't get how, like, how do you know that you're going to get a kid? And the worker said, well, sometimes kids come into care as an emergency, like a death in the family, or, you know, like an instant removal where you know, this bad situation happens or whatever. Or sometimes social workers have been charting abuse for a very, very long time and then they remove, you know. And she said, yesterday we had the circumstance that a baby that we knew was coming into care came into care, you know, and we also had an emergency situation and 2 kids came into care. Like both situations happened yesterday. And so that was November 1st. And I remember thinking, I wish I would have been licensed 3 days ago because I wanted that baby girl. Like, and that's what I had told the worker. Like, I want a baby girl. I want a baby girl under 3 years old. I want to play dress up. This is what I want. I don't want any older children. I already have this, you know, I have 2 8-year-olds and I have a 10-year-old. Like, I don't want these older kids. I want a baby. Like, that's what I want. And it was 4 days later and I was sitting in my chair in my living room and I got the, you know, call and I'm like, oh, the agency's calling me. They've got kids, you know, and I answer and she's like, hi, you know, it's Laura. I just want to let you know we have a possible placement for you if you're interested. It's 2 children. You know, and I was like, oh, 2 children, 2 little babies, yay. And she says, they're 5 and 8. And I was like, that's not what I asked for. You know, like I could pick them out of the catalog. That's not what I wanted. And I said, okay. And she said, and I really think that you guys are the right parents for them. She said, they are learning disabled. They're like infants. They don't speak. They've been very, very abused. They're both in diapers. They're kind of like the infant that you're asking for, only they're 5 and 8. And I was like, please tell me that the girl is the 5-year-old. And she was like, nope, the girl is the 8-year-old. You know, and I was like, ugh, okay. Like, I'll meet them, fine. I call my husband, I say, like, we have the opportunity to take 2 kids. And it was those same 2 kids from November 1st. Like, I found out later, it was those same 2 kids. And, you know, I said, well, I'll meet them. You know, and I really sat with this, like, I don't really want a 5 and 8-year-old. Like, I have 8-year-olds. Like, I don't want 8-year-olds. I want a baby. That's what I want. And I promised I would meet them. So that weekend I met them for the first time. And my daughter, both my children are redheads. Actually, most of my children are redheads, but these two children, my daughter, little redheaded girl, she was in pink sweatpants. Her hair it looked like it had been in a ponytail, and somebody had like sawed all of her hair off. So it was all like matted and like a bowl cut, but not like it was terrible. And then my son, who was 5, he was in matching sweatpants, only they were blue. And he had bits of chunks of hair missing. His front teeth were all black and rotted. My daughter had caps in her whole mouth was metal of capped teeth. My daughter walked with her leg dragging behind her. Joe, my son, who was 5, could only walk like 3 steps and then would just fall down. And he had been pushed around in a stroller. He had a helmet. I was told that he had a helmet that he was wearing like at school. He didn't have it on that day, but they didn't speak. So they just stood there and just grunted. And it was probably like we met for an hour and we walked around the zoo near my house. And I went home that night. And my husband said, "What do you think?" And I said, "They're not cute. Like, they're not. And I don't know if I can do it. And I don't know what I'm supposed to do with these children. Like, I just don't know." And, and I didn't know, and that's honest, right? They're not, because they weren't. And I didn't know what to do with them. And they didn't even like look like Cabbage Patch Kid cute. They just were like they just were not cute. And I didn't know I didn't know how to handle that, because I had in my brain, right, things that we expect, we put expectations in our brain of what we think they're supposed to look like, and then they don't, and then we're disappointed. Where had I not expected anything, I wouldn't have been disappointed, but I did that to myself. And so that following weekend, I promised I would at least give them a trial run, because they wanted to make sure that they were going to be a good fit. Wherever they went, they wanted to make sure that they were going to be a good fit. And so that weekend, they came over to my house. Now, these were like feral children. That's what the guardian ad litem had said to them, that they had been so far abused and tortured that they were like feral children. My children did not use silverware at 5 and 8. They were shoveling food into their mouth. My daughter, the first time I took her to church, which was after obviously I took them home, she was laying in church with a church pew with a dress on for the first time, hands in her tights and her legs up over the church pew, and I'm like, "Get your legs down. Oh my gosh, get your legs down." And that was our life. Like, we had to learn all of those things. But the first time I had them, I'm okay, like what would I do on a day like today? Okay, it's a beautiful sunny day. There's an event happening downtown. It was like Thanksgiving weekend. So my town was having this like big Christmas event. What would I normally do? Well, I would normally walk my children, my able-bodied children. We would walk downtown and we would enjoy this event. That's what we're going to do. So my best friend and I and these 5 children, 2 of which are like barely walking, walked 8 blocks, walked downtown, saw Santa, rode on the horse and buggy that was like the carriage rides for Christmas, and drank hot cocoa and did all those things and walked home. And I knew that they were so much better and they had life in them. They just needed someone to tell them that they had life in them.
Pour that love on them. Yeah.
Yeah. And so I called the social worker that afternoon and said, "Absolutely, I will absolutely take these children." And the other foster mom that had brought them over that day, I had told her what we did for the day. And she was like, "You did what exactly?" And I said, "Oh yeah, we walked downtown and we saw Santa and we did all these things." And she was like, No, you walked downtown? And I said, "Yeah." I said, "These kids are a lot more capable than you think." And I'm going to see that. And I've since seen that woman now. I mean, I've had Joe and Amber in my life almost 13 years now. Joe is turning 18 in 2 weeks. And I've since seen that foster mom who was like an emergency home. That's why she had them, because she was like emergency placement, middle of the night placement sort of thing. And she said, I never would have guessed that these kids could have done that. I never would have guessed that. Like I never in a million years, if you would have told me that your daughter, who my daughter Amber is 20, would go to a college to study culinary arts, I never would have guessed that in a million years. So yeah, so now I have like my children. So that was kind of the story of them. And I really did just love on them where they were at. And every day I just did all the things as if they were, 1 and 2, and I just moved them through all their stages in their life. Like I just took them for their development and said, okay, like your development has been stunted for this long, but I still believe we can move through them. So I just started doing that. Like, nope, this is a fork. Here, use a fork.
Yeah.
Here's the fork. Let's do this. Nope, your hands don't go in your tights. Nope, this, nope.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it was great. And my daughter learned very quickly that in my household, we do not wear sweatpants. My son did too. That's a rule in my house. We do not wear sweatpants to school. We look presentable, we look respectable. And so I went out and I shopped for my daughter and I bought her a whole new wardrobe that included tights and leggings and dresses and cute outfits and hair bows and all the things. And she was my daughter that I got to play dolly dress up with. But she fought me for every
I bet. What girl don't fight her mama?
Right? Because she was like, you want me to do what now? Like what? Like, and she obviously, she couldn't speak when I first had her. And now, I mean, she's Chatty Cathy, but she went from like, but I just want to wear these sweatpants, and I was like, no, you got to wear tights and you got to wear this, and she was like,
I love that you had the opportunity to be on both sides of that fence.
Yeah, me too.
To be able to give, because you get to, and I'm sure there are other mothers out there with the same experience, but
yeah,
how many, and you get the chance to share what it looks like on both sides, to be the one to gift the baby. I don't want to say gift the baby to their parents, and then be on the receiving end, and then take something in an extreme case, as you just described, and then basically love them into fruition, into these beautiful beings that God intended them to be.
Yes.
I love it. And I can't even imagine what it must have been like going through the process. I know God had to be in there somewhere, though. That's what I know for sure.
Absolutely. But, absolutely. I'm a mom on my knees, let me tell you.
Yes, that's what I'm talking about. But to be able to witness it, like, it must have been like, I can't even imagine. Like, so.
And it's, I think about, because people, and this is for everyone, like there are times that you wonder where God is, because you're like this in a situation, like you're so in it, where they say you can't find a tree through the forest or forest through the trees. That's because you're literally staring at a tree like this, right? You can't see anything else. And so for me, there was many years of this journey that I had with Amber and Joe that I could not see. I knew God was in it. I mean, and I'm a believer, and I was there, and he was there every step of the way. But it was very hard to see where we were going until now, where my daughter is 20 and my son is about to turn 18. My daughter is in her second year of college. She's at a private Christian college for people who are disabled, studying culinary. With, not only did she do it all on her own, but she wrote for so many scholarships. Now, this girl who could not even write the letters of her name at 8 years old wrote for 50 or more scholarships last year, and she received 8 of them last year, received 5 scholarships last year. She's debt-free. She's 20 years old, going to a private Christian college where tuition is $50,000 a year, and she is living debt-free because of her hard work and her dedication and her love for the Lord. And
that is a testimony.
And she is. And my son, who's getting ready to turn 18, begged me to be on the track team. Now, this boy could not walk, and I was told would never walk normally. just ran on the track team last week. I don't know if you saw my post on Facebook, but he got in my car. He ran for his first event this last Friday. He got in my car and I said, Joe, what place did you get? And he said, well, I almost got first. And I said, oh, what place did you get? I got second. And I said, oh my God, that's amazing. You got second place. How many runners were there? And he said, well, there was me and the guy who got first.
Oh, I love it.
Got second place.
Yeah.
And that was what he believed. So he had so much belief in himself that he believed he got second place, even though there was only 2 runners.
He did get second place.
And he did. And I asked him, his voice was so hoarse. Now, this boy who didn't speak, who talks all the time now, his voice was so hoarse. I said, how come your voice is so hoarse? Were you cheering for your other teammates? He said, no. When I was running the 400, which is a whole big lap, he said, I was just yelling, you keep going, Joe, you can do it, Joe, you keep going. And that's what he did. He ran for 400, the 400 laps, screaming the whole way, you keep going, Joe, you do not give up. And I was like, okay, I'm not crying.
Oh, I love it.
Second place, woo, you know. And so second place doesn't mean last place if you're not counting any other runners. It just means second place.
He got second place. Bottom line, period.
Yep, exactly. He got second place.
Oh my gosh.
And so yeah. So my son, who couldn't walk 12 years ago, just took second place in a track run for his high school team. So I'm like,
and if that don't speak to y'all, I don't know what else will.
Exactly.
You can do it. Keep running. You can do it.
And keep running. And it doesn't matter who doesn't matter who comes in first. Like, you get to decide and you get to find joy in the fact that you came in second. And he just looked at me and he said, sorry, Mom, I didn't get first, but I gave it my all. And I said, you sure did. Like,
that's
you did
it right there.
Yeah, absolutely. So
man, I just want to say thank you so much for spending your morning with We Are Not So Different. Like, I just know that this is going to help somebody, whoever out there listening, whoever out there can relate, whoever out there was able to gift their child to a family or was on the receiving end and had the opportunity to bring some babies into their home and love on them and love on them and love on them. So I want you to tell my listeners where they can find you. If this is your time, give us websites, give us phone numbers, give us social media handles, whatever. Where can they find your book? Give us all the deets.
Absolutely. So you can absolutely find me on Facebook. Angela Witczak is my name, Witczak. I'm sure that you're going to have a post. I could even post my name in there. I'm also under Angela Witczak / author. You can find me there. My email, which I give out to everyone like it's candy, because if you need something and you need to talk to anybody, if you need a person to just listen to or bend an ear to, please email me. My email is choosetoday366@gmail.com, because every day is a choice. And so choose today, and 366, because people always talk about 365 days in a year, but there's actually 366 because you have to count leap day, because that's a day and that day matters too.
Okay.
And it does matter. That day matters. Do you know that this last leap year, and I will tell you this last leap year on leap day, I raised $25,000 for a homeless shelter on that day. Now, if we didn't have that day, I wouldn't have been able to raise $25,000 for my local homeless shelter on that day. So every day matters. And so that day matters as well. So that's why I always say 366 days, not 365. My book, this book right here, I'll show a picture of it in case you want to see it. It's called Life is a Circus, Enjoy the Show. You can type in on Amazon, Life is a Circus, Enjoy the Show. And if you type in the word Angela afterwards, my book will come up. But it's on Amazon. You can buy on Amazon. You can send me an email and I'll send you a signed copy if you want that as well. What else? I'm on Instagram, author Angela Witczak, author period Angela period Witczak. I'm everywhere.
Everywhere.
I am everywhere. And I have a lot more stories in my book about life.
Oh my gosh. And if if this is like just a snippet of all the juicy, well, she calls them icky bits
Yeah.
that
All my
can be
icky
found in
bits.
her book, man. Oh my gosh,
Yes.
y'all need to
Yes.
grab a copy and stop playing.
Yes. Please grab a copy.
Well, thank you, Angela. I really appreciate your vulnerability. I appreciate your transparency, and I appreciate your energy, like your
Thank you.
charisma, your like constant encouragement. It's giving me life. So thank you.
Well, thank you. And anytime you want to have me back and talk about any more icky bits, like you call
Girl,
me up and I will be there.
don't threaten me with a good time.
Anytime, and I know we didn't talk about where I live, but I know you're close. So like anytime,
Yes. Yes.
we can meet halfway for
There you go.
You know, you're close enough.
Yes.
Yeah,
All right.
sure.
So we are not a different family. That hour really flew this time. So until next week, do something. I would say do something nice for yourself. Go get a pedicure or a manicure or whatever, whatever it is that you self-care. Do something nice for yourself this week. You deserve it. Until next week, guys. Love you. Peace.
We are not so different.